Welcome to Photo Talk.
Sunday morning, and we are
I'm
here.
here. I'm still hearing the intro.
You're still hearing the intro? Yeah, that's why, because I'm kind of dumb. Sorry. It happens sometimes.
No comment. Anyway, welcome to Versace Studios. This will be our School of Photography series, where we're going to help out beginners, and we're going to start doing more
Basic
training.
stuff.
And I'm still hearing it in the background.
You can't be hearing the background. Oh, maybe you can. Okay, now you cannot hear it. I'm trying to get used to all this new stuff we are using here. I don't even know if the music's playing. Is the music playing?
Yeah, I can hear the music.
Okay. So, as Ron was saying, this will be like our space to try to teach. And we're going to start from scratch. And
Well, we're not going to try. We're going to teach.
We're going to teach, okay. We're going to start from scratch, from Mach 0, and start to build up. And
Yeah.
this is our first time on Sunday. I don't know if it's a better day or a worse day. Thursday are getting kind of busy for us. So if you like this time and this day, just let us know in the chat.
Yep. So today we're going to be covering the parts of a camera. This is actually going to be the day one, lesson one of anybody that wants to learn how to do cameras. Is first you got to know your gear. Knowing your gear is the most important part to understanding all the processes that we're going to educate down the road. But the first part that you need to learn is actually what is your camera made of and the components. So this will help educate, and we're going to move you in small segments forward to understanding your camera and to become a better photographer.
So if you already know that kind of stuff, you can just skip this episode. Don't skip this episode. Stay here. Stay right there.
You might learn something. Who knows?
You might learn something. Who knows? And it's a fun topic. So,
but yeah, right now, I mean, I could basically show you. I have a Canon and a small Nikon. These are really the bottom of the bottom cameras. Okay, these are the ones that students that I have use. This one is the Nikon D70, and this is the Canon T100. So, like I said, these are the first year student cameras, because I don't care if they get beat up, because they only cost about $100 to $200. And Alex,
for a matter of comparison, let me change here. We have here a film camera,
the old
Zenit,
Russian
122 film camera. Yeah, you still have to do click and roll it.
Gotta remember those days. But yeah, so we're going to show you all the different components, and in bringing those components together at the end to show basically all your parts of your camera. Okay, and this is going for film or for digital, which film is kind of coming back a little bit in some cases. A lot of street photographers prefer using film. There's a lot of nuances that go with a film than
There's
there
a
is with,
lot of people using film these days.
yeah. So
You see a lot of portrait photographers, they always have a digital camera, and they have like something else that runs on film.
right. So that's what we're going to try to do. But today is all about the parts of the camera. So let's get started.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me bring you back to the big screen.
What should we go
Okay.
with? Canon or Nikon? I'll go with Canon.
Yeah,
Anyway.
let's go with the good stuff. Sorry.
So anyway, these are still, the bottom of the line literally the cheapest ones that you can get. But they all still have the same components and same
Basic
mechanisms and functions that all cameras have. So first off, you have your lens. Okay, if you're looking at this, the lens part, right? Now to take off a lens, you have a release, which you press down and then you spin it and then you pull it off. Okay, and then you'll see it breaks into your two pieces. Now your lenses, okay, if you look inside there, I don't know if I got that in the camera. All right, it's made of pieces of glass. Okay, inside you'll have anywhere from 2 to who knows how many pieces of glass. Just depends on the manufacturer, right? And you have your main element, which is in the front. Okay, this one happens to be a variable lens, which is a 18 to 55. This is what we call the kit lens. Okay, on every lens,
Why we call it the kit lens?
This comes with the camera. It's one of the cheapest lenses you can get. So now every one of these do have indicators on their lips. Okay, if you look right here, where between my fingers, you'll see there's a 58 millimeter with the little circle and slash. Okay, that is how wide this mouth is. So if you're looking for, say, pieces of filters to stick on here, that's the size that you're going to need to put onto your lens. So say you want a polarizer, or some star filter, or some weird
ND filters.
Yeah, I mean, all those just fit right on here with that millimeter, because it's a very tight fit. You don't want light coming through. It also tells you, like, this is EFS, which on Canon, the EFS is basically the crop sensor. Okay, this isn't a full frame sensor camera, of course not. It's like the cheapest one, right? So you also have what it
One
is.
important thing to tell about this is that there are, for DSLR, there are two types of camera lenses on Canon: the EF and the EFS. The
Correct.
EF is for full frame sensor, but it will fit in a crop sensor camera.
Yeah.
The EFS is for a cropped sensor camera and do not fit on a full frame camera. Sorry to interrupt. Are you looking for a full frame one?
Yeah, I'm looking to see if I got mine here.
You want me to grab one here?
You got a Canon next to you?
Yeah,
I didn't even think of bringing it. But okay, so we have the inside. You'll also see an 18 to 55 millimeter. Okay, this is telling you what your focal is. Okay, so 18 to 55, right? And then right next to it tells you your aperture. So when you say 1 to 3.5 to 5.6, when this is at 18, you'll get your low number of 3.5 aperture. Okay, now when it extends to the 55, the lowest you'll be able to go with aperture is 5.6, and this is why we don't like kit lenses.
So
It's one of them.
let me change it. This is a EF lenses, so it comes written here. I don't know if the camera will catch, but it's Canon Zoom EF lenses. This fits on any sensor, but is a much more expensive lens. That's why one of the reasons it's easier for beginners to start with cropped sensor cameras. We already talked about this. We don't recommend you to start with cropped sensor cameras, but the price of the lenses are much cheaper if you are talking about crop sensor cameras. So this is a EF lens, is a 7200 L series f4.
Yeah.
Go on, Roma.
So yeah, no, I mean, it's just showing you the EF mount is what it is. So
one more difference. Can you turn your lens on lens in the side and show the white mark?
Well, I was gonna
So
get
you can see his lens gets a white mark, and the white mark's a sign that lens only will fit a cropped sensor camera.
right.
And my lens has a red mark
dot.
right here.
And
right
yep.
there. And now I'm going to show how to mount.
And if you have an EF lens, see this little red dot? You match this red dot with that red dot that he just showed you, and rotate, and it'll lock it in. So you have an entry point for EFS lenses, and you have an entry point for your EF lenses. So just to show you, you see how these line up right there, and that's how you lock it in. Okay. So now looking at your camera body. Okay, that was enough on the lenses. I'm done with that. So looking at your camera body. Okay, everyone has a mode dial. Okay, your mode dial talks about, like in this one here, if you look at it, you can see it has several different program modes, which I highly advise you never to use any of these. Okay, because these are like portrait mode, what is that? Landscape mode, close-up mode.
Yeah, usually you're gonna keep it on manual, AV,
Yep.
TV, and bulb if you do long exposure.
Sure. Now, this little movie camera is actually a video mode, which you may use at some point. The A plus is your automatic mode. This is basically for snapshots. So if you need to run a gun really fast and you aren't ready to play with the camera in manual modes or semi-manual modes, automatic is good for like quick snapshots and putting it back, right? But once you start getting into it, okay, P is program mode. It does not mean professional. I've heard that so many times, and that is not what you want to have it as. Okay, now TV mode on Canon, which is also the same mode as your S. Is it S? No. Actually, this one don't even have the mode.
Oh, it does. They just changed the name. I honestly
No,
can't use an icon.
Yeah, I know. But all right, no, it's got the S mode. Okay. S mode is shutter speed mode, which is the same as TV. TV is your shutter speed mode. So all you're going to be able to do, and I'll show you if this will let me do it. Yep, it does. All right. So battery's getting low. These cameras don't really work. So if you notice when I'm moving it, it's giving me the shutter speed, right? So you see it going 160, 180, but the ISO doesn't change. Let me throw this off here. Maybe it'll change. The camera will decide everything else. So you see how if I'm updating this, and let's say I want to go to 1/50th of a second, 1/8 of a second, right? It's blinking at 4.5 because I'm really close to it. But let's see. There. Now you can see it moving, right? I'm at 4 seconds, 5 seconds. You can see how the f-stop is adjusting itself, right? Now that is what TV mode does. So when would you use TV mode? Well, we'll cover that in very heavy detail in another video. Okay, I'm just showing you the modes themselves. Okay.
Yeah, and don't think professionals don't use TV mode and AV mode because
Those
we
are
do.
two of one of the biggest modes that I think all of us use, right? So AV mode actually is your aperture priority. And look, it even tells you. Check that out. All right, so with AV mode, of course, I gotta have a lens on there to show you. Why I took it off, I don't know. I did. All right, so with AV mode, if you notice, I can maneuver the AV, your aperture, right? So you notice the f-stops are moving, but you don't see speed. Now, if I hit it, it'll tell you, see, I can adjust that f-stop, but now your speed
Can you
is
put it
going
more to the center of the frame? It's getting up. Yeah, right there.
There we go.
Right there.
So you can see that if I'm moving the f-stop, well, I got to get it up here or else it won't see enough light for the rest of it. So there. Now, so you can see how moving that is going to let your speed adjust to whatever you're using. Now, see, I'm beyond where I should be for the camera to be able to speed up fast enough.
You are running out of batteries.
Yeah. So that's why I'm trying to get through this part quick. And then, of course, M is manual, which is what I always tell people. That is what you need to play with and really get to know. Okay. But that's your mode dial. Okay. Now up here is your hot shoe, and let me turn this off real quick. There we go. So this is the hot shoe. Okay. Now this camera actually has a pop-up flash. Okay. And a lot of people get annoyed with this flash, but unfortunately, that's what you get
Okay.
for the small.
Before you go on, what is a hot shoe?
Hot shoe flash. Do you have one?
Yeah.
I don't have one over here. The hot shoe is actually the bottom of the flash. Yep, there you go. So right there is the hot shoe. That is the connector that goes to these. Let me switch those cameras real quick.
Oh, do you remember this flash? It's the one that fell on the floor.
So you see the 4 connectors here. Okay, these are your ETTL sensor. That tells it, that programs whatever it has. So if the flash has an ETTL, these 4 little dots right here will actually send the signals to the flash to tell it to adjust. Okay. Some of them you'll see a center dot, which means it's just a single flash. There's no data. It's just gonna, whatever you program the flash to, it'll flash.
Can I change the camera?
Yeah, go for it.
So this is a TTL flash. So you notice you have 5 pins here, kind of hard
Right.
to see, but you have 5 pins. This is a manual flash. You just have 1 pin in the middle,
One
nothing
single pin.
else.
Yep. And now, one thing I do like to tell people is sometimes you'll notice that the formats of how these work are different. That's why you see flashes that are both. You never see one that's like Canon and Nikon, except for Godox that actually has flashes that are made for both.
And manual old flashes like this.
Yep, or manual flashes, which hit the center dot. But see, like this one, if you notice, does not have a center sensor. So the your T100 will not shoot just a plain flash. I don't know if you know that, but that's
Yep.
that's
The
one of the-
T100 and there is, I think the T7i is the same.
Yep.
They did change the hot shoe, so old flashes, some flashes still work, but you
Right.
need to do a firmware upgrade in the flash.
So now we're going to continue on here. Of course, you got your
Oh, I just want to do
Your
one
shutter
thing
button.
before you go on.
Yeah.
So this is like a slide, okay? So there is a wheel to lock it. You just slide it. Best way. You just slide it. the hot
you're
shoe,
off camera.
Then, oops, you slide it, and then you close this wheel, and the flash will be locked. in the
Right.
camera.
And that goes
Oh.
for all of them. You know, they all have the wheel, lock wheel. So this is your shutter button. So on your shutter button, some people know I like to do back button focus, and that's an advanced level that I will teach later on down the road. But
Some people
this
don't
could
like that you like to do back.
There's a lot of people that don't like that. But the shutter button can also be a meter only button. So it'll meter before you actually take the shot. But currently in its original state, when you half press it, you'll get a focus. It'll start your focus. And then your second, and you depress it all the way, which will go to a second position, which will then take your picture. Most of you know that because once you get your camera, everybody plays with it, right? So your wheel is what you're going to use for adjustments. This camera does not have a back wheel. It's just one single operation. The Nikon actually has the back wheel and the front wheel. The front wheel will do your aperture, back wheel will do your shutter speed. Okay, and in most cameras, that's the setup on basically all cameras. This is just like I said.
There is, I don't know how it works on Nikon, but when you are on one of the creative modes like AV or TV, both wheels will change the
Will
parameter
change it.
that
Right. And that's only if you're in the program mode. When you're in manual, each one does its own, except for this Canon.
Just in
This
case, this is the
cheap one.
Canon. So you have your front wheel here, and you have your back wheel here.
And most Canons have the back wheel like that. The EOS R, which unfortunately I'm using right now over here, that one you actually have a slider to do ISO, so it's a little different.
Oh, that's cool.
And once we go to there, okay, inside the camera, okay, it does a prismatic viewfinder. Okay, so in here there's this prismatic prism that reflects down into the camera, which if you look right there, you can see this little screen underneath there. Now be careful because that screen can be scratched very, very easily.
This part is important. If you don't have a mirrorless camera, this is how your camera works. It's a single lens reflex camera. It works with a mirror and a focusing screen. So,
exactly. And this focusing screen can be changed out to multiple different types of viewfinders. You have really fine viewfinders. You have crop mark viewfinders, which actually I use quite often when I use my SLRs. Now that I'm switched over to mirrorless, I don't have those crop marks in there anymore because you don't have a focusing screen. Okay.
you don't need it anymore.
Now inside, you'll see this little mirror that flips up. I highly advise you not to touch this mirror like I'm doing right now, but this camera is, like I said, it's basically for the very, very beginners who touch it anyway. But this camera flips up. When you go to take your photo, this will go up, and then you're inside, if you can see it. I don't know if I can get the light right. Hey, use your film camera to show them the shutters.
Show my sensor? You want me to show my sensor?
You don't have a sensor. It's a film camera.
Wait. So, okay. What we have here, angle. What we have here is the film camera. So, as you can see, there is a mirror here. As Ron was saying. And this mirror, what happens is, the light comes through the lens, hits the mirror, go to the focus screen, and you can see the image through the viewfinder. So what we're gonna do here,
it's the same as the digital as far as how the reflecting into your viewfinder works.
yeah, unless you have a mirrorless, that is different. But what happens is when you shut the camera, this mirror will flip up and you expose the sensor in the digital camera. Here is a film camera, so when it flip up, you can only see my hand because there's no film. This is the space where the film goes. So you can show, this is what happens there, but there behind the mirror, there is a sensor. Yeah, I'm putting my finger to the shutter.
Yeah, but again, that's a film camera. So one thing about the film camera that's nice is that you could actually see your shutters and the curtains and how they work. Now, I'm going to hit this because I got bulb. You could see how it releases, and then you see the sensor back there. See the sensor?
Okay, what is bulb?
Okay, bulb mode is basically it's activated when I press it and I let go of it. You can see I can control how long or short. If I just want to press it as fast as I can press it, or if I hold it, it's open and then it closes.
It's mainly used for long exposure.
Right, light painting, astro, stuff like that.
You can control how much time. I'm on bulb here too. So let me come back here. You can control how much time the sensor gets exposed. So in this case, let me find the angle again. In this case, every time I hit, let me take out of bulb first. So if I hit here, it's very fast. You practically don't see the curtains open. So if I just come here, put it on bulb mode, as long as I hold the shutter, it will be open. As long as I hold here, it will be open. So use this for long exposure.
Okay, so now, like with film, you can see through it because you have a film substrate that goes between there and the back of the camera. So why you can see through his is because it's a film camera. Now in the digital, you have what's similar to what a film used to be, and that is the sensor right there in the back. Do not try to clean this on your own. I highly am going to tell you, you will screw it up and scratch it, and then you will have to buy a new camera. So I just want to give you that point of view. So when you're looking at this, I'm showing you the parts. Don't play with it the way I'm playing with it right now. Okay. So like the screen right here, your focusing screen, if I was to actually barely touch that, I could scratch that and you will see that in your viewfinder. And it will drive you insane. And the same thing with your mirror. You can clean your mirror all you want. You're not going to hurt nothing. Okay. The mirror is fine. That is just reflecting the light up into your prismatic viewfinder up here. Okay. Now, once you do open this, you can below it, get your little Fuki, and in fact, he has a Fuki. He could show you. I know he has one because he was playing with it. Go to big screen so they can see it.
It's a blow, a rocket blow, you call it, don't you?
Yeah, I call it the Fuki. So
no, you don't.
So there's that, and that's to clean inside here to get the dust out. So if you see little dots in your skies, little circle dots, it's usually because that sensor has some dust on it. A lot of the newer cameras actually have they have an actual electronic resonance, which will cause the dust to fall, but sometimes it don't work. So next, if you look at these little brass dots down here, okay, these are your electronic encoders. Okay, if you look on your lenses, you'll find the readers here. So when these two connect, the camera knows what lens is on the camera. So one thing, if I'm sure a lot of you may have seen this if you've been shooting enough already, but you'll see that sometimes the lens isn't noticed by the camera. Okay, if you've shot for any length of time, you will get this error code and it will drive you nuts because you're like, what is going on? Usually the contacts are dirty. If you take a pencil eraser and rub it over here lightly, and you rub it over the connectors.
Yeah, with careful.
Usually, you don't want to press these down because if you get it underneath there, you're gonna have to have it pulled out, and it's sometimes can break. So you just lightly running over it on both sides, okay, and then try it again. And if that still doesn't work, then sometimes a little rubbing alcohol on a Q-tip, and then you do it with the rubbing alcohol on the Q-tip. Very light. I mean, don't soak the Q-tip, just lightly, put a drop on it and then just rub it over it. And usually that may work. Sometimes you may have to take another lens, stick it on there, clear it, and then bring the new one up, old one back on, and it'll work too. So that's another tip, I should say, is that sometimes you may have to open up your battery compartment, take out the battery, let it die off, put your lens on, and then put your battery back in. Okay. And when that happens, all right, then your lens will probably get connected. All right. Excuse me. All right. So let's move on. All right. So now you just saw the battery component, right? A lot of your non-pro cameras will have their batteries mixed with their card slot. Okay. This is an SD card slot.
Oh, really?
This is the small SD card, which most cameras come with. And So this is what the SD card that usually comes with the camera. This is what actually goes into these. Okay. So we have that type of card.
We have this one. There is I have a
have-
compact flash here.
We have a
Oh, you have one.
CF flash, which also this D70 from Nikon is actually a CF card. This is one of the reasons why I love to use this camera for kids. These things are beast for memory cards. These are flimsy and they tend to die very quickly. Okay, so I'm just letting you know.
No.
These
The
are
only
more.
problem with this. The only problem with this is the fact that I don't know if you can see it. There is a bunch of holes here that has to fit the pins inside the slot,
Yeah,
and,
and
some
if
people
you put it
just
in properly,
destroy it. You know.
I haven't had any kids destroy it, and that's only because it can only be guided in one way. So
One way, yeah.
you know they have to have it right, and then the guide actually slides it in, and they have to actually press it down to make this little gray release knob pop up. So
I actually
That's-
prefer CF cards. They are
Yes.
more expensive than SD cards.
that's one of the reasons that a lot of the new Canons I really don't like is because I could not use my CF cards. Now this is a little for extreme. I use this for the kids. So, these are like $20 maybe over at
Yeah,
Walmart.
see how long I have CF cards. Can you read the
I've had 'em.
instructions of this one?
I've had them forever.
I had it when this kind of was big ones. Look the size of it.
Yeah.
256 megabytes, and this was top of the line.
And now, I highly advise. I actually highly advise pro grade if you are looking for a CF card. I highly, if you do this for a profession, pro grade cards are your number one cards. They are the fastest cards on the market, and they are a superb company. If you ever have problems with them, I guarantee you can contact them, and they have great customer service. So that's one thing. I don't use these cards for clients. I use my pro grade cards for all clients. It's just something that I do. I like to make sure that when I get there, I'm not having a dead card eventually, which we all have. So anyway, with the slot, Nikon actually, even though this is probably, I want to say this is probably the cheapest Nikon digital out there is the D70. So if you have a son or daughter that's about to do that first year of photography, this thing's maybe 125, $200, which is nice. I got a Hoodman on here. This is actually nice for the kids, so when they're out there in the sun, they can actually see what they're doing. But again, mode dials up here. There's a flash release for it up here, which will actually pull out the flash. This thing is dead, so unfortunately I won't be able to do anything. But that's Nikon.
There are few things that you didn't say on Canon that I don't know if you're gonna say. Sync port and
I haven't got there yet.
okay, DOF preview.
Yeah, I know. I haven't got there yet. So, on the back, you'll see that there's lots of, easy access points. Okay, this camera is like the basic of basic. So, of course, you have white balance, ISO. You have mode drive right here, which will change it from multiple exposure to timed exposure, which means like if you're trying to take a picture of family and you got it on a tripod, you can set this for like 5 seconds or 10 seconds, hit the button and run over there and get inside the picture with them, right? That's what your timer mode is for. Then you have your AV mode. You also have your exposure compensation mode. Let me see if I can pull this up. So you have your AV, your exposure compensation, um, speed. This is your disposition, your display. I mean, sorry. Q activates the menu items, so you can actually scan through using your D-pad or controller pad, and you can actually go through each one. Okay, each one of these, like I said, this one has hot buttons, but you can also go in the Q menu, and you have your shutter speed, which you can increase and decrease. You have your f-stops, which there's no lens on it, so you won't see that. Um, you have your ISO, which you can change your ISO to anything that you wish, to include auto, which I don't recommend. Um, then if you come down here, this is your exposure compensation. Okay, so you can see bracketing, right? Which later on we'll get into what a lot of this bracketing is, and trust me, it's fun once you get into it. So we're gonna go ahead and exit that. All right, and then we got exposure compensation. Now this is, say you're in snow or you're shooting in a snowy image, right? And you know that your flash meter is going to try to make the white into 18% gray, right? So you know already it's stopping down. Well, actually, it's going to stop up in order for it to get white down to 18% gray. Well, exposure compensation is going to take that and allow it to be changed, so I can go to 1 1/3 stop or 1 1/2 stop, and when I take the picture, it'll be 1 1/2 stops down or up, however you need it. So like if it's a black shirt and it's trying to make black shirts into gray shirts, then that's how your meter works. Your meter's always trying to find 18% gray and turn whatever it's pointing at into 18% gray. We'll get into that again when we talk about meters and how to use meters, but just showing you that that's where that is taking place. Okay. This is this is basically your picture style. Most of the time I leave this on standard. I don't think I've ever changed this in my entire career. So that's one thing you ain't got to worry about. Okay. So let's go back here. You got your details. You can do saturation. If you see your colors are coming out a little dull, you can always increase your saturation. But as you can see, I mean, I don't touch these unless I really have to. Canon, I've never had to. I've had to do saturations for Nikon and Sony in some cases.
It's more useful when you are shooting JPEGs.
Yeah,
you're shooting JPEGs is more
right.
useful.
Really, that's the only time it's really used for is JPEGs, because JPEGs are what you get right out of camera and you can't make any alterations to it. And
to be honest, I use it a lot when I'm shooting raw because I like to shoot monochrome.
Yeah,
I like the back of my screen to be monochrome.
I'm getting there. So we have our white balance. You know, everybody knows what white balance is. You got your sun, your shade, your clouds, tungsten, you got fluorescence, you got flash, and then you got custom. I'm usually always on custom because one thing about custom is that I'm allowed to adjust the Kelvins, right? So that's just me. Let's get into here. All right, so here's your standard auto light optimizer. I usually turn it off. I don't really need it because I optimize it myself with the way I do my adjustments. But you can leave it on standard if you're not really comfortable. Okay. Let's see. Then we go down here to your manual focus, AI focus, or your AI servo. Okay. One shot's usually what I do for standard portrait photography, for food, for headshots, for anything like that. It's whatever's not in action or motion. Okay, if you know it's gonna be somebody that you can you know take your time and um, take your time with it. You'll be able to use single one shot because every time you press your shutter, it's going to focus once, lock it in, and then you can shoot. Okay. Now, if you are looking at doing the AI servo, right? AI servo will actually continuously focus. So as long as you're holding it down halfway, your lens will be in a constant focus of whatever you're looking for or looking at. Okay. You're going to have a small little focus point that'll be in the back. And I don't know. Let me see. It's been a while since I played with this one. So if we look in here, of course, no cards in the camera.
The card is right on your side, buddy.
Yeah, no. I'm just looking to see. It's not going to be easy to get this because it's very low light. All right, so there we go. So you see that little square there? That is it hunting right now. So if I move it away, you can see how it's adjusting itself, right?
And you can hear, at least I can hear the noise of
Yeah.
the lenses trying to focus.
That is this noise right here. Let's see if I can get it. The little beep that's telling you it's in focus. Oops. You can hear it hunting. All right, so that's the hunting sound, and with a kick camera, you'll hear hunting a lot. All right, so we definitely don't need to worry about that. All right, so next is your evaluative metering. So now there's 3 different metering modes on this camera. The newer cameras will have anywhere from 4 to 6 depending on the camera. This one has evaluative metering, which will take up roughly about 17% of the actual camera. And you have your partial metering, which isn't taking the metering point. It'll actually just take a relative area. Like say you're looking at this screen here, okay, your evaluative area will be about right here. So it's going to look at this area and it's going to evaluate from there. Okay. And then you have what's called your center average, and this one don't have point, which is really funny. But you have your evaluative, which takes this whole image from edge to edge and looks at all the light and makes its own adjustments in the camera. Okay. Now for me, I like point. So if you're looking at doing shooting and using the metering, I highly recommend that you keep it at point, which is just a single dot in the center. Okay. Now what he was talking about, this is where you could set your image quality. Okay. You can go large, small, medium, for JPEGs. And the only time I ever use JPEG really is in sports. I think that's literally the only time I ever actually use JPEG only. And that's just because of rapid deployment. Okay.
Yeah.
I
do the same, except when I just hit the wrong button and shoot a whole portrait session. JPEGs by mistake.
It happens. But just make sure that you take it off of that. So, and to do that, some people do like to use RAW plus JPEG, and it's going to slow down how many times your camera will take photos. So just letting you know, if you're a sports photographer or you're trying to shoot sports, you may fill that buffer up pretty quickly. Okay. So decide what you're doing. If you're doing portraits, just do RAW. If you're doing, sports, then any one of these modes are fine. Large is going to give you a large A2 size print for this little puppy. I mean, this is literally a basic beginner camera. but you can get smaller. Like this one here is a 2592 by 1728, so it's a smaller image.
I
But
usually shoot sports with this camera.
yeah,
I usually shoot sports with this camera. One thing that Rom said that is important is this is a Canon 7D. It's the first version of it. It
Right.
shoots on medium JPEGs. It shoots like 11 frames per second. On RAW, shoots 3 frames per second. So there's the speed of deploy of the images, but still there is the speed of the shutter and the buffer.
right. And depending on the camera, you could have anywhere from 10 images to 100 images inside that buffer. So once you hit that buffer, you'll notice that the camera will actually start to do a lag. It'll start going tick, 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 tick.
The light
Chick,
down
chick.
here, you're gonna blink like crazy and never stop.
Yep. And that's just because it's full and it won't take any more pictures. So on the back of here, you also have a video button and live view button. I think I touched everything that's on the back of this one. Let's see.
We still didn't touch the
AE lock.
depth of field preview.
Well, that's in the front.
Yeah, in the front.
So Nikon has their basic camera actually has a few extra little parts to it. Still similar to what Canon has. Okay, you still got your play preview button. You still got a menu button. Your ISO and the little thing that looks like a checkerboard. That checkerboard is actually your focal points. So just make sure you understand that. This has white balance and your enter button. Okay, it does have a dill D-pad here and a lock switch, so you can't bump your D-pad and mess it up. Okay. Both of them will have the AE lock, which I do believe this AE lock, maybe, yeah, does it? Yeah, right there, the star. All right, your AE lock. What that does is basically you focus, you can lock it in, so it doesn't adjust any more of the metering, and it'll take the picture. This is only done in your automatic modes. So if you're in AV mode or your shutter speed, you'll be able to utilize this. Okay, because it's using metering in order to get the other factor. So if you're in the shutter speed mode, you're adjusting your shutter speed. Well, when you hit that AV mode after you've metered, you will lock in that shutter speed and the aperture that it's showing. So that way you can adjust and take the shot, and you won't have to worry about the meter changing the calculation that the camera's already done, if that makes sense. All right, so in here you got bracketing, and you also have your exposure mode right there. So it makes it pretty easy. Now, one thing that I didn't cover on this one, because this one I don't believe has one. Yeah, it doesn't. When you're looking through your viewfinder, and say you wear glasses, okay, you're looking through this viewfinder and you're like, why is my image so blurry? Even though you focused it, it looks good on the computer, but when I look through it, it doesn't look clear. Right here on this one, you actually have a small maneuverable diopter adjuster, right? So this will actually move the lens inside the camera back and forth to adjust to your eyes. And yes, Canon has them also. It's just this beginner one doesn't.
Yeah, that's really weird.
Theirs
That's
is
really
usually no, it's not weird. It's just because it's $150 camera. So, unless they got it hidden underneath this rubber, I can look.
No, they don't. It's
No.
over.
It's not there. So this is a diopter adjuster. So the diopter adjuster, basically, like I said, if you can't see clearly, just do a couple clicks on here and see where it becomes clear, and then you're fine. Okay. Um, now in the front here, like, okay, you won't see this on a Canon, but you'll see it on the Nikon. Okay, they have their manual and autofocus on the body. Okay, Canon's is on the lens. So if I show you the lens, it's here, right? So it's just a different placement, but it still does the same thing. You got manual and you got autofocus. Okay. Now, what he was talking about is some cameras, and this one doesn't have one, but this one does. You'll see this additional button. Okay. Canon, again, this is the cheapest version, but they do have this button. And it's called the depth of field preview. Okay. Now, it's not going to fully give you a 100% depth of field preview. I just want to give you a heads up on that. It will close it down to what it has in the lens. So it'll stop down your lens and it'll give you a rendition of what you're looking at. Okay. So I just want to give you a heads up.
Stop down, it means close
Whatever.
the aperture.
Whatever you have your aperture set to. So most of the time, if you look in there, it'll keep it same aperture, right? But if you actually close down your aperture,
You can't close it in an
I
automatic
hate
lens.
kit lenses.
Just here.
So
Here.
what?
Here. This is a man.
Yeah, there you go. You can see how it stops down. So it actually opens for stop down and it'll close for stop up. So yeah, so it'll adjust the f-stop so you can see in the camera what it's kind of going to look like. Okay. Now, one thing I do like about my EOS R, which is the newest of the Canon, is that it already comes with a 100% preview. So what I see in the camera, I know it's going to shoot, which is another positive of having mirrorless over film.
The
Okay.
EVF, the electronic viewfinder.
Yeah. The EVF is amazing when it comes to low light. 1 EV of light is all it needs. And that's for a lot of the newer of the cameras. And I have
basically you have live view inside of viewfinder. So you have the same picture you have in the back screen. In this back screen, you have the same picture you have here, but you're gonna have it here in a mirrorless.
Yep. So that is basically your run through of all your components to your camera. Now on the side here, I did miss one part. Okay. So here you have your USB hookup and you have an HDMI hookup. And this is all you get with this small camera here. Nikon's basically has the same thing. This one is so old that it has the old SVGA cable. So you got one click in here and it goes out to the red, white, and yellow cord in order just to have a video out. Okay.
Okay. Let's go to a more modern one.
Yep.
Not that modern because this is old too. So you have your sync port for your flash. You
Yep.
have a mic in.
And now that sync port is also in the front of Nikon's. So you'll see a little.
In this manual one too, there is
Yep.
here, right? The sync port right here.
Yep. So some of them are in the front, some of them are on the side. You just have to look at what camera you have.
Then you have a USB port and your HDMI port. Actually, I don't know what this port is
Which one?
under the sync port. I don't know what it does.
That is the trigger, remote trigger,
Oh, remote
port.
trigger. Yeah, this is the
Yep.
remote trigger. Never use that stuff. And
which again, the basic cameras don't have. So I'm just letting you know.
if we go back in the past, you're gonna see that all we have in the new cameras is an evolution of this. So we still have dials here, but these dials are not for modes. These dials are. This one is
It's your shutter speed.
Shutter speed.
Yep.
This one is your ISO, and the aperture, as I show you before.
is on the lens themselves.
Is on the lens. So you
It's
can
the way I
hold it
used to like to
open.
shoot.
And
Kind of miss
you
it.
have the focus barrel here, where you can focus manually.
Right.
You still have, I don't know, the screen here. You still have the mirror. The difference is that there are no sensor, as we show up before. So there's a hole in between. And one thing that Rome said, and I was dying to show in this camera, is that do you have a timer in that camera?
Yep.
Oh, I
All
do have
cameras
in
have
this one
timers.
too.
Yeah.
Here you
It-
have a wheel that you can roll it,
Right.
and then you hit this button here. It's green. You hit this button, it will make some noise, and when it gets
Does
to
the countdown.
red,
Yeah.
when you get to red, you're gonna shoot. Oh, and a shot.
Yep. So, yeah, with these cameras, I mean, I could show it, but
Tripod mount.
with these cameras, basically, you have a setting. Oh, my battery died. So anyway, right here you'll see your little indicator. Also in the Canons, they have another. In the menu, you can actually set it up to do 5, 10 second, whatever it is. Every camera still does everything that another camera did, even back then. Camera bodies are still identical to each other in their form and function, which is one of the best things about cameras. You could get used to a camera, pick it up later on a, no matter what type. You got your film and you have your digital. You could pick up a camera once you learn the basics, which is just understanding what those functions are. You will actually be able to shoot basically any camera out there. So that's one of the good parts of that.
Okay, one thing that he didn't say is that under all the cameras there is a 1/4 inch thread, so you can put it on a tripod. And this one, for the meter, it has a port for batteries. Those old batteries from watches. You put it here. I cannot show it because it's without batteries, but the meter here is pretty simple. There is a red LED, green one up, and that's it. That's the meter.
And let me see. So on these over here, just to show you. All right, the beginner Nikon actually has your focusing light here. Okay, it's a little white light that shoots out and blah blah blah. With the Canon, there isn't one. This is the new one, the new T100. So this is literally like I said, this is made for a kid. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. All right, this will shoot multiple flashes to make the focus go through, and this will drive. If you have somebody with epilepsy, watch out. So
Yeah, but the regular Canon ones has the light here too, right in front of it. You see the reflex there?
Yep.
Right.
And a lot of times on your the cameras themselves, your flash could actually have a grid line that'll shoot out, and it will create your autofocusing for your camera.
Or your trigger can have it.
Yep, and the trigger has them in the front.
Your trigger has one here.
Not all triggers, but
Yep.
most triggers. Like,
in the cell, this is a broken one. It's working, but it has the light and the photos.
that's IR sensors.
Yeah, but it has the light too. It comes like
Yeah. Your focus grid. So yeah, so like I said, there's many different ways that the camera works. Now, this was just an intro to the exterior part of your camera. And like I said, this is a first video. So technically, anyone that picks up their camera should be able to watch this video to get a quick overview of the body and the lens of the camera. So now they'll be able to look at it. They'll be able to tell what's on their lenses. They'll be able to know what the information is for. They'll be able to tell, like if you want an f-stop of 2.8, like the 7200 2.8. You can see it on the front of the lens, so it won't. If somebody tries to say, "Oh, well, that's a 400 lens," and you look at it and it says 100 400, you're like, "This is a variable focal lens. This isn't a 400 lens," and you're trying to sell it to me for $15,000 when technically this is only like 1,200. So little tidbits and little points, but the point is that you understand these basics to the camera's functions before we go into our next videos, which are going to be dissecting each individual point that we just touched in here. So we'll get into more details of what an AV mode is, what a TV mode is, ways to use it, stuff like that, what bracketing is, what, white balance is, what shutter speed is, what aperture is, what the aperture diamond is, what the aperture triangle is, and we'll get into a lot of these into more details as these videos get produced. So if you like being here on a Sunday morning, let us know in the comments below, because I have a feeling this is probably going to be a better day for us to do videos for, so people can catch it. One of the big complaints that people have been letting us know is that Thursdays just doesn't seem to be a good day because they have to go to work. I guess so. So
I guess people have to work.
And not only that, I mean, we shoot too. So Thursdays have a tendency of being a shoot day. So,
yeah.
So we're trying to make it to where it's more convenient for you guys and it's more convenient for us. So hopefully down the road, we'll figure out what day is going to be best. Let us know in the comments what day would be great for you. Would it be a Friday? Would it be a Saturday? Would it be a Sunday? What time frames? It'd be nice to know.
Follow us. Just subscribe to the channel to not lose the next video, because the next video will be even better than this one.
Yeah, like, subscribe, and hit that little notification bell. I'll be honest with you, we're about to throw out a lot of knowledge that's going to come out in small chunks all the way up. So that way you can literally just get your camera and you'll start to learn every function. And we will be giving you an exercise at the end that you can join us on Facebook and submit your photo if you want, so we can look at it.
Links in the description.
That will allow you to get more involved and actually learn each part. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to feed these things weekly, and then we'll give a weekly assignment to follow it. Does that make sense? So you're going to get the lesson that you'll be able to rewind, watch it again, rewind, watch it again, and then you'll get the weekly exercise. And this weekly exercise is going to be a series of shots that you must take to understand that one function. And trust me, once we get through all the functions, you won't have a question anymore and you will know your gear. And that's one of the biggest things that we want to do, is teach a person to fish. We are not going to sit here and show you, oh, I could do this. Oh, I could do that. It doesn't matter if you don't know what these functions are for.
Or even what settings are better for these.
Yeah. Or, that's why I always tell people, you see all these people that take photos, right? And everybody goes, oh, well, what were your settings for that? That means nothing. And you will find out why. Okay. It's called reciprocal exposure. It doesn't matter. And then you can't match their lighting scenarios exactly to the T. I don't care how hard you try. If they have one window and that window got light coming in, that is a factor that is changing everything. So again, it's about knowing your camera, knowing your gear, and that's what we're here for.
Even if the light was not changing, is the north face window, is the south face window?
Right.
Your lights can never be the same as the other person.
It won't be. And that's one thing that we're trying to, instill, is that you're going to be able to figure that out on your own by understanding the steps to get to that point. And that's what we're going to be covering in the next few, down the road. We're going to start this whole series and we're going to literally step by step, breaking it down to where my 6 and 7-year-old students can actually understand. So if you have a kid, and yes, we will keep it PG-13. I'm saying 13 because that's usually the people that actually understand what they're seeing. But you may have a 10-year-old or 12-year-old that actually likes photography. Well, this will be able to be used for them. So we're going to keep it safe. We're going to keep it clean. It's going to be 100%. Each area will be covered slowly. And we're trying to build an entire series to cover from the fundamental all the way to the advanced user. And we're going to go through down this journey very slowly, very, very articulated. So that way there is going to be so much information in a 1-hour video. Like this one here was 1 hour, but we covered 4 bodies technically, of cameras just now. We're going to do this again with the next video. And I just hit my microphone. Anyway.
No, you didn't. This time you didn't. I couldn't hear anything.
Well, I did, but I didn't. But okay. So again, thank you for joining us. I'm Rome Versace.
I'm Alex Costa. And we'll see you guys next week.
We'll catch you guys on the flip side.
Bye-bye.